marker. Good evening, it's very good to see everybody tonight. Welcome. My name's Toby. I'm going to play you guys a couple of tunes. I might start off with the cover and then do one or two originals. See if you recognise this one. You are weighing bored. Bandamunda, Mujabin. You are weighing bored. Bandamunda, Mujabin. Yenyan Kira. My name's Toby. I like to, I'm the kind of person who likes to share music far and wide. Last couple of years I've been trying to read my Noongar language through the power of music and song. And so I'm the guitarist for a choir named Magical Morning Choir that's been going around for about 12 years, and I'm the leader of Kundam Choir, which is the offspring choir of Magical Morning that I started as a 10-year celebration of Magical Morning. So feel free to check us out if you want to hear more of this Noongar language music, because we like to try and, in some cases, translate some well-known songs just so we establish a connection between people. Next song I'm going to do was written by my mum, Della Morrison, and the 20th year of the song being around, I translated this song into Noongar. I don't want to put the specific of 20 years because that kind of gives away mum's age. She doesn't like when I say like, well, just a powerful message, mum. Should I do one more cover or one more original? Okay. You don't have to tell me twice. So this song is called, sorry, underneath lyrics for it. It's called Epochs of Yore. It's a song that's kind of paying tribute to all the people throughout history who were like out to retain good ideologies, and how we are very much privileged to be able to hold on to some of those great ideologies to this very day. Some people, from very, very long ago just, got it right once upon a time, but like we can 100% tomorrow, and a better tomorrow.
Please, everyone, just another big round of applause. Toby arrived in the very last minute. We had a beautiful cellist and a beautiful alternative plan for this evening, but the universe, Spirit had something else in store for us, and that's just really so much thank you. What a better way to open the space. I think another bit of synchronicity here. I think this really speaks to what I was hearing anyway from Kobe's song there. The stories we tell. And that's, for me, this whole new economy movement, this, what we're doing here this evening is all about finding our stories, collective stories, and we need a different narrative, don't we? Now, these clowns, and we can't, I really don't want to, this will be the only time I will mention this. If other people do, then that's their choice. But the clowns that we've had, and what we've just seen over the past few days in our leaders, if we're not inspired to create something different at this moment, then anyway, the motivation is strong. And this is something that just speaks a lot to me. With the new economy movement, and as a father, the dreams of our children and our dreams as well. Our inner child. We need space to play with these dreams. This new story, a future that's where we actually. Us and the planet actually exists. That's probably not a bad, not to be too dramatic about things, but that's pretty much the situation. Now there's multiple layers to this, and it's probably hard to see here, but we have different aspects of ourselves that we need to integrate. We have our little personalities, our egos, we have our families, we have where this comes from, the geo-sentiment or our attachment to country. We have our attachment to our race, to our class. We have attachment to our species. What this is trying to communicate here is that we need, all of these things are important. The final part of this circle is a concept which means a lot to me, neo-humanism, when the underlying spirit of humanism is extended to everything, animate and inanimate. Got some beautiful vegetarian food here. No animals have suffered in the... So, how do we extend our, from our little perspective on life, from our individual needs to more collective, universal outlook? And again, this for me is what the new economy is all about. How do we go beyond? And this is embodied in all the amazing work that's gone into this evening. And I just really want to say thank you all for being here, but also particularly thank you to our guests who have come from afar, and for everyone being here and all the volunteers that have made this happen. There's no other exchange than goodwill that's making this happen. Adam, do you mind? I kind of come from my journey to being here tonight is one of, I guess, a bit of resistance. And we've got some great warriors here in the room. And I want to acknowledge those warriors. I'm going to hear from one of those great warriors in just a moment for his people. But this, I'm also kind of attached to clouds. So this means a little bit to me on a few levels. But we can stop the flowers, but we can't stop the spring. I and another beautiful person, and quite a few beautiful people here, were part of this Occupy Perth, we had this Occupy moment around the planet, and it was stomped. It was stomped. That's what happened. How do we? But the spring continues. The flowers can be stomped, but our movements continue. So, you know, if you think of Occupy, all that was stomped there has just spread into 1,000, 1 million beautiful flowers. So that's what I want to communicate. We can probably skip that one actually. So we talk in this new economy thing about post-capitalism. Now it's really clear to me, and I know it's really clear to a lot of people in this movement, that we have our own, you know, and when I say our own, my own Indigenous past, you know, we have our own technology. Even us, modulars, us white people have that within us in our history. But that's all been talking about being stomped, that's been stomped, a lot of it. But here in this part of the world, and First Nations people all around the world, they've been pretty stomped too, obviously. But we have here, in this part of the world, the oldest living culture. And we need to take leadership and guidance from them. They hold so much of the tools and keys to us actually solving these problems. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Robert Eggington to talk about pre-capitalism.
Thanks, Varun, and I'm certainly happy that you didn't mention any type of welcome to country, because at Doughnut, that's one thing that we don't do in terms of making people feel good, is to pursue the political falsity of what one might consider the devastation of a race of people, to say welcome to the very lands in which the blood of our ancestors soaked as it was forcibly taken by war. And we are still in that war, 240 years later. I've fallen from a great height. I stand before you a near broken, war-torn, 62-year-old man, a Marmon of the Bibbulmun Nation. The Bibbulmun Nation, its greatest sacred area of ceremonial importance is Kadagarl, commonly known as King's Park, where the War Memorial stands so proud in terms of the remembrance of the Anzacs and the wars that were fought to defend this country. Coming here tonight, we made a pretty incredible trip down Hay Street, firstly, and there I saw the statue of James Sterling, to whom led the war and the massacre that took place on the banks of the Murray River in Pinjarra. And it was deliberately and strategically planned to take place at dawn. And the reason that it was dawn was because they knew, the soldiers knew, that the men would still be asleep. The women would just be starting to rise to the sun, to nurture, to take care of the children. They would be waking. And then the horses came in, and the women and the children were hit the hardest. 250 women and children were slaughtered on the banks of the Murray River. Lake Munga, and on the banks of the lakes are massive burial sites of where massacres took place, the forced occupation of this land. So when I fell from a high place and my heart bled, I awoke somewhere within a cave that to me was a very sacred place. So I remember seeing the bones of our old Marvin men, powerful men, men of substance that could do things that ordinary men could never do. And I crawled from there. And as I crawled out from that place, I remember waiting for my loved ones, thinking that they were going to come soon. As I looked around for them, I didn't realise that they were in front of me, waiting for me to crawl to them wounded. We lose our loved ones in this war, in this country, at a greater rate than young Palestinian men are killed on the Gaza Strip. And yet every night around the world's media will talk about the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian death and what's happening between Israel and Palestine. It makes world news. There's more young Aboriginal men that take their lives and fall ill to this secret war that rages in this country that hardly raises a whisper. And it certainly doesn't raise a whisper in this country. So we learned about the redcoats from our grandparents and our parents. My wife sitting here tonight, her great-grandmother told her the story of when Aboriginal people here, the Whadjuk people, saw the first horses. They couldn't believe what a horse was. And they thought what came back was the spirits from the Beedor, until they realised that when man let go his bowels, that he stunk just like them, and realised they were human. So we have many different realisms in this country that has to be faced before I believe we even think about changing economics. I don't live in the white world. I don't care about the jokers that Karoon talks about. They are meaningless in my life. I don't think about Donald Trump, no more than I would think about Malcolm Turnbull, nor Tony Abbott, nor Bill Shorten. They have no place in my life at all. I'm an Indigenous man, a different culture. We're worlds apart. Worlds apart. In whatever unification may work towards the solidarity of bringing a truth in this country that people can work towards their healing, it has to be through people being able to sit down and through stories that are shared around campfires to tell the truths and to listen to the pain and the suffering. Because the greatest knowledge in this world is not a knowledge that is birthed through the channels of academia, nor through political influence. It's a spiritual knowledge that is a lived experience by people that I believe we can learn so much from. So in saying that, I know I've got limited time, but I want to say that the Derbil Yerrigan here, you know it by the name of the Swan River, is where Dumbarton first made a statement that became our maxim, and around the world became a statement of great pride for Indigenous people. And that statement was made as I looked out over the Kayana gatherings, and we had a flame that was burning central in the gathering, which was a flame of respect to all Aboriginal people who had died in custodial institutions in this country. And as I saw that flame burning, the words that flickered through my mind as I said to the people that had gathered, and there were in excess of 20,000 people, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, may our campfires burn forever. And that maxim has become Dumbarton's not just philosophy, but our belief of staying true to who we are as people. We are a people with very little political influence in this country and of no wealth. We have a culture that David Suzuki, one of the world's greatest leading environmentalist scientists, says that if we don't, in the Western world, learn from the Indigenous people of Australia, not of North America or Canada or other parts of the world, in Africa or New Zealand or where in Australia. If we don't learn the relationship that they have with the land, how they nurture the land, how the land is the mother, the first mother, we will lose this planet within 2 generations. And the alternative economics will not mean a thing except an attempted futile process to help make a change in something that was already railroaded to its own death and on the brink of its destruction. I want to finish, and I will, simply by saying 2 things. We're told that the planet wars rage because of religion. Late breastfed fools would be those that would believe that. Aboriginal people lived in a world where we never knew of war. Our spiritual boundaries were set that within our land lay the sacred sites of where we would worship the spirits of the earth. So I couldn't go into my wife's tribal boundary and conquer her lands. For the spirit that I believed in and my totem was in the land in which I inhabited through my moiety. So we knew of not of war. We knew of not of famine. For how can a privileged, affluent, white Western world take great consumerism in its materialistic wealth, whilst little children in Africa cannot even get a grain of rice nor any fresh drinking water and die before your eyes whilst you sample the greatest menus that this world has got to offer? And then think of change and how to change things for the better. The privilege has to be changed. The privilege in which each and every one of us in this room lives. You've got to be willing. You've got to be willing to put that privilege out of your life's pursuit. For the truth is far greater than your greed in terms of what's going to save the young ones and make the changes possible for this world that's gone wrong and so broken to become right again. Aboriginal people lived in a direct connection with all animal life, that not one animal life, as small as it may be, or as large as it may be, ever became extinct. No animal life ever became extinct through our totemic systems. So we need to look after Mother Earth. We need to believe that the earth and the land is a living entity. In our culture, it's a female spirit. It's a woman. The same name that we have for when our women are of pregnancy, when she's bujari, when she's got little fetus in the side of the tummy. is the same word. She's Bujari. We have got the same word for our land, the Buja. The link between the little one, the land, our people are but one, our first mother. For how can you own your mother? How can you own land and subdivide, divide, and make money off that? So the economics can be, I believe, changed through a knowledge that's spiritual. And somehow we've been disconnected from our spirituality. We've been disconnected from the time we were birthed, and we live a deceit and a lie through the masters that set our minds to believe in what they enforce us to believe in from the time we're born. So that connection between each other, we must work hard towards connecting our humanity, our equality, and in ensuring that human rights and the rights of our people are based on an equality, that one suffers no longer any more than the other. And on that, I'd like to say, you're standing on Wajak Buja, and we must respect the fact of the privilege that many of us that do has come at a great expense of so many who have suffered and have died as a result of what makes up Australia's national identity and who we are as a people.
Thanks very much, Robert. Robert's had a really big few weeks. He's had a really big, ever since I've known Robert, his resilience, his courage, and Selena as well, just to the work they do for their people, and the work they do for all of this community here in WA is just I just can't even begin to quantify. And for being here tonight, I just really say thank you so much. I'd like to introduce Adam Jordan. We have a gang of 4 organisations that are putting this show on. One of which is Friends of the Earth, which I'm kind of wearing that out of. Adam is from Enkel. And later we'll hear from Dave Palmer from the Centre for Responsible Citizenship and Sustainability. And we're all partnering with the New Economy Network of Australia, and we'll be hearing from Michelle Maloney on that shortly. But Adam Jordan from Enkel.
So I'm sort of one of the reps from Enkel here tonight. We have heaps of people. We all have these Enkel t-shirts. So if you have any questions, grab us afterwards. Yes, Andy, can you help me here? Yeah, next one, please. So the first question is, what is Enkel? Who's heard about Enkel before in this room? So maybe half of us, yeah, cool. So, yeah, we're a group of people here in Perth, a collective people who believe that we need new approaches and more people to tackle the challenges of today and tomorrow. Move on. Our mission is to create a new generation of change makers in Western Australia. We're a non-profit co-op. We're going to talk quite a lot about co-ops this weekend. We run events such as this one, courses, we do consulting, we run collaboration spaces. Most recently we're in East Peak Park. We're about 25 members only now. We had way more members a couple of years ago, but now we sort of tightened it up, so we have 25. But we are open to new members, so if you're sort of interested in what we do, chat to us this weekend, get in touch at this website. So this is sort of in theory what we are, and I'm going to quickly show what we do. This is just a couple of images. We started in 2014 with this question. Are you interested in co-creating a new combined co-working space, make a lab, school for entrepreneurs, cafe and garden in Fremantle? And we worked on that since then. Try to do like a picture Cookshaw style, just move, so I don't talk too much. We did a lot of events around the future. I'm a futurist, so I'm interested in the future of everything. Temporary makerspace, we're going to talk about makerspaces later this weekend as well. Big part of the new economy movement to move back manufacturing of stuff to our neighborhoods. Did an Ideas Accelerator where we had people developing their ideas, 10, 12 people. Food Futures Guerrilla Conference at the South Freedom Farmers Market. A lot of workshops. I think this is design thinking or something. Again, DIY robotics for kids to teach people to make things themselves rather than buying it from China. Bigger events. Who went to OSCE days? Any people here? We did that 3 years in a row. Open source circular economy days. So we worked a lot with circular economy as well. One of the main things within the new economy. We did something called living labs around urban food production. Another one called education lab. Yeah. We had this thing in Big Park together with the Big Park Collective and Town Big Park called the Big Park Mini Lab, where it was a collaboration to sort of activate a disused space in Big Park, which then closed down. We also create organization change makers. We run things, consult and run workshops for government. Also work in a school for change makers, which is sort of post-university students who want to do something else than get a job or study. People who want to change things. Now we're working on something called Holochain, which is some of you have heard about, which I'm very excited about. It's a post-blockchain ecosystem, which I think can help accelerate the transition to a new economic system. So come and talk to me about that. Our biggest project is a place called the Naval Store in Fremantle, just across the traffic bridge when you drive from North Freya to into Freya. It's a massive warehouse which we aim to turn into a living lab for the new economy, a space to prototype the future. So that's basically some of the things we do. We do a lot of things, and the process or the concept we sort of think Enkel as being is sort of an exploration of emergence. So the process of becoming visible after being conceived. So we operate, or try to operate, or aim to operate according to these principles. So we have a lot of people doing all these weird things. You can't really see any connection between the stuff I showed here. Like, what does this robot has to do with this guy doing food and this circular economy stuff? But we sort of intuitively bring in people who want to do things. Like, oh, that sounds good, let's do that. No one really decides, no agent decides. We operate through distributed leadership. Actions spring up in different areas in Perth. We're all over Perth. And we hope to connect them to make them a more powerful, higher level system that they're at now. We're going to talk more about emergence this weekend, so it's sort of one of the themes here. We normally say trust emergence. So I think that's it for me, just quickly. Thanks everyone.
Let's introduce Mr. Doughnut from the Centre for. Could you say what it was? I can't remember. There it is. There it is here. The Centre for Responsible Citizenship and Sustainability. Doughnut.
Thanks, Dawn, and thanks for the invitation to be here tonight. I want to do 3 or 4 things before we can. We do some socialising, I think. The first is to say, Mr. Eggington, yes. Yes. And when I invite people just to quietly murmur either yes or pale or my word or amen or whatever in your place, you feel is a response and acknowledgement to use their wisdom. Some of us know which country we sit on. My home fire is burning. I'm from Adelaide, from Ghana. My home fire is burning in my knock. My two sons are from here. I work at a place where many of my colleagues don't know, or they don't want to know. But there's a number of my colleagues that do. They know about respect, and they know about responsibility. They know that we sit on a place that has a story of blood. There's a story of extraordinary, people call it resilience. I think fertility is a better word. That this place is older than anywhere. You want to use the term economy, you want to use the term we're in spirit, you want to use the term home, fires. This place is, my home fires are older than anyone knows. Tomorrow we're coming to Murdoch at 6, close to where old people are everywhere. They really sit there strong. My heart sings to have a young fella. I put it in my smartphone to remember his name. It's Cody Morrison. And there is an extraordinary expression of how the blood sits underneath our feet, but it also makes this place so fertile. That language and song and that young people are rising up. That old language, that old song, that old knowledge, that makes my heart lose words, but cry and yell at the same time. So I see it as, I've got two responsibilities for the next 2 days. One is to be reminded of your recognition of where we are and where those fires are burning. And the other is to take some responsibility. My colleagues from the centre, they're much nicer human beings than me. I have a tell on Martin's sitting here from in the morning if you come along. You just wave your hand in the air, Martin. And where are you, Nick? Over there. They're much nicer. If you see 3 of us, then it's our job to make a cup of tea, to see to it that you're safe, and to see to it that we respect. I wasn't going to use that word welcome, because we've got an obligation to look after you. The centre does that. I think, I'm sort of on the edge of the centre. I think the most beautiful people are associated with the centre. I call it, you talked about gangs before. The centre is a gang of people that give a shit. It's very fancy, it's very slick, it's very academically, new public language. They represent an old spirit of Murdoch, and it's probably old spirit of people that are concerned. They encourage young fellas, Kobe's age and tomorrow, to see to it that they respect where those young fellas live. So when you see me tomorrow and you're a bit thirsty, I'm a cup of evening.
Thanks, Dave. Very shortly, we're going to have an interactive process. We appreciate everyone getting through this part of the evening. It's really important to start off, strong as we are, and to really open the space. But someone who's going to help us do that is Dr. Michelle Maloney. She's the co-founder and co-convener of the New Economy Network Australia. And she's co-founder of convener of Australian Earth Laws Alliance. Does anyone know, is Michelle actually in West Australia? Because I know she has been here. Well, she's yeah. She spent quite a bit of time here and there. She couldn't be here tonight, but she has a presentation that she would like to do. Let's introduce the New Economy Network in Australia.
Hello everybody. Thank you so much to Coram and Adam for inviting me to speak via Zoom at the Building a New Economy for Western Australia conference. My name is Michelle Maloney and I'm one of the co-founders and one of the main coordinators of the National New Economy Network. And I'm very pleased to be able to give you just a few slides, a bit of an introduction to the work of NINA, and to invite you all to, I guess, be part of it as in any way that suits what you're up to. Turn on my timer. Lovely. So what I'd like to do in my 10 or 15 minutes is to introduce the New Economy Network, talk about the challenge ahead, what it is that we're actually facing, why we're building the New Economy Network, and some of the progress and what's on the cards for our future within NINA. So the challenge ahead, or the great work, I use that phrase because it comes from Thomas Berry, and Thomas Berry informs the work that I do in my main job, which is convener of the Australian Earth Laws Alliance, or AILA. But really, whether you look at it as the great work or the great crises that they're facing at the moment, it's this idea of tackling ecological, social and economic issues at a time of great change and great environmental destruction that faces all of us. So the problems that we're facing, the great crisis, includes the fact that we're eating up our planet at a much faster rate than our poor old planet can replenish itself. The idea of growth economics in itself is pretty crazy, given we live on a very finite planet. And the idea that neoclassical economics has pumped out at us for several decades is that we can continue to have material growth, which is of course not possible. And the Global Footprint Network tells us that at the moment, if everybody wanted to live like Australians, we'd need about 4.8 planets or more. So there's obviously a fundamental disconnect between our current economic paradigm and the reality within which we live. Another way to say this is that one of the great developments from the Earth system science sphere of work is this concept of planetary boundaries, this idea that for the first time in our history, humans have been able to quantify the biogeochemical cycles, the very fundamental foundation of how we ensure that life on Earth can exist and thrive and evolve. The bad news is the same scientists are indicating that we've already crossed 4 out of the 9 planetary boundaries. So we're already pushing ourselves out of the safe operating space for all of life on Earth, and how we put ourselves back into the realm of ecological limits, how we rein in this growth-obsessed economy and culture is really one of the great tasks of our time. And it's not just the environmental impacts that are a problem. Within this excessive consumption and pollution of the Earth, we're also seeing extreme inequality between human beings. Sometimes we frame it as the 1%, the global elite. Either way, for the first time in human history, we're seeing obesity rates killing people at an excessive rate, as well as exactly the same time we're seeing people still starving to death. So we're dealing both with overconsumption and underconsumption. In the Australian context, we are one of the most affluent cultures on Earth, and it's really our job to think about how we rein in our excessive consumption of planet Earth and our continent, and play a productive part in building a healthy economy within ecological limits. Closer to home, I guess I'm based in Brisbane, so I guess the things we see in Queensland, and perhaps you are aware of this in WA as well, is this endless idea that extreme resource extraction is possible, whether that's the extraction and logging of forests and trees, the continual idea that coal mining and other mines are still an acceptable way to create energy. All of these issues that we're facing have devastating impacts on the environment and very short-term gains for the economy. Only last week I saw this photo come through the news from the Western Australian Forest Alliance. Again, here's another symptom of the extractivism culture, this idea that we can just keep mowing down these precious ancient forests These trees from southwest Western Australia, after they were dead, were carbon dated at being between 500 and 600 years old. This is our precious natural heritage. This is our earth community. And we can no longer justify an economy that allows this kind of destruction. So one of the things we do within NINA, and I'm sure many of you do within your own work, is think about how did we get here? How did we create this kind of system that causes great devastation to the living world and extreme inequality to people? Whether you look at it as the rise of agricultural societies and permanent settlements, you go that far back, 10, 15,000 years, whether you look at European colonization from the 1600s, or you place the blame firmly at the foot of the perfect storm of development which started with the Industrial Revolution, we now have seen in the last 100 years the rise of capitalism, corporate capitalism, and after the Second World War, what people call the Great Acceleration. And it's more the last couple of decades of neoliberalism that people point to, but our extreme extractivism culture began long before that, post-Second World War, with the rise particularly of corporations in the USA, and then the onset of globalized cultures and economies based on those models. We've seen the impacts on the planet, whether that's the take of marine life, the increase of nitrogen into the coastal zone, ocean acidification, methane, carbon dioxide, all of these all of these problems are on the rise. That dotted line, if you can see this at all, and I hope you can, that dotted line represents 1950. After the Second World War, the consumer capitalist mode of being, combined with technological capacity to just extract so much from our planet, has seen all of these indicators go up, and not just a little bit, exponential growth. We've also seen the causes of all of these impacts go up. Population growth, the move to urban population increase, large dams, transportation, telecommunications, water use, all of these indicators are going up. So basically the foundations of the modern economy and the entire globalized modern culture really need to be rethought. The big question though is, how do we unravel the mess? I kind of love this slide because it's often how I feel about this complex mess that we've created in industrial societies. But I'm also fundamentally an optimist. That's why myself and many colleagues are working on the Australian Earth Laws Alliance approach to earth-centred governance. And it's why many of us all around Australia are building the New Economy Network. And the reason we're building NINA is that we believe that all of the solutions already exist here in Australia and around the world. The examples of incredibly positive initiatives are all around us. We just need to connect and amplify them, strengthen them, and increase their impact. Whether we look at renewable energy, sustainable food systems, local and diverse economies, co-housing, changing the ownership structures and power structures through cooperatives, through worker cooperatives. There's just so many great things going on that are better for planet and better for people. But the problem is our dominant economic system, which is largely driven by deeply unfair power structures between politicians, corporate leaders, is stopping us almost like a brick wall. But I like to think of the new economy as nature coming back through the cracks in the brick wall, and slowly, but we have to speed it up, bringing down these barriers to building a better future. So what's the potential of alternative economics, as they're sometimes called? Well, there are many different movements. They've emerged around the world for decades. We're not inventing anything new. The community development and community economies movements in the 70s built upon the mutual and cooperative movements that were built out of the wake of the Industrial Revolution. So a lot of what we're doing is just kind of reforming and reinvigorating a lot of terrific old ideas, as well as some really cool new ideas. So there's lots of different names: well-being economy, social economy, solidarity, sharing, collaborative, peer-to-peer, steady state, community economy, and regenerative economy. We chose the framing of new economy because it's hard to argue with. It sounds shiny and exciting, and it's really a broad framework as well that doesn't exclude anybody who wants to be in this exciting future, this post-capitalism future. So new economy is the framing we're using. And all of these different movements really do share two fundamental goals. One, they challenge the current dominant system with this large-scale resource extraction, fossil fuel reliance, unjust social structures. And I guess the important stuff too is it creates and strengthens these diverse economies. It focuses on an economy or different economies that can build social justice and support planetary health. So this lovely quote from Buckminster Fuller is a good way to summarise a little bit about the ethos of NINA. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And I'd like to suggest that we do both, that we continue to build the good stuff and we amplify and show off all the cool things that we can do to live a more sustainable, just life. But we still have to keep up the good fight so that we don't lose the Great Barrier Reef, we don't lose more beautiful old growth forests. Everyone has to be active at all these levels. But NINA was created because there did seem to be this absence of a civil society network that brings everyone together to join up the dots. And in a way, joining up the dots or helping bring together the little fish to turn around and chase the big fish is kind of a simple way of thinking about NINA. If we believe that all of the great energy and initiatives and projects and people and ideas are already out there, but by the very definition of a new economy, they are diverse, they're often smaller, they're localized. The trick then is to bring us all together to maintain our freedom, our independence, the joy of work that most of us have, but to band together to advocate for a different direction for broader society. So yeah, I really like that diagram. So what have we done in NINA so far? On our website, neweconomy.org.au, you'll see that our definition of our network is that we're a network of individuals and organisations working to transform Australia's economic system so that achieving ecological health and social justice are the foundational principles and primary objectives of the economic system. So we're designing NINA to be a place where people can find each other, get together, facilitate connections, showcase and promote innovative projects, build peer-to-peer learning, use collective strategies to advocate for very specific change, and build a strong movement of people demanding, creating and benefiting from a new economy. There are 3 dimensions to NINA's work. We're building these networks, connections, and shared initiatives within specific geographic areas such as towns, cities, regions, and across different sectors. So people across Australia in the food sector, or people across Australia who are worried about transport and housing, can perhaps use the NINA umbrella to find each other, to work together, to get some great ideas and to support each other's work. And the other thing we really want to do is to work, and we're building the governance structures for this, to prioritise specific strategic goals every year or every 2 years so that we can have momentum and have focus around core priorities. NINA sort of was born in the idea for NINA was born in 2016 when the wonderful Professor Bronwyn Morgan from the University of New South Wales had the idea of running a conference around social enterprise. She asked me to assist and we both decided that it would be really kind of useful to find out if people wanted to build some kind of broader network or coalition. There were 150 people at that conference and the overwhelming feeling was that yes, it'd be great to build that kind of network. We then spent a year with lots of working groups kind of designing up the kinds of issues we were interested in and held another conference in Brisbane. We had almost 400 people come last year. It was deeply chaotic and really awesome. And so today, we're pretty much about to send off to the network structures, the proposed governance structure for the NINA network. And anyone who's interested, jump on our mailing list if you're not already on there. But really what we're building is a network of semi-autonomous connected hubs. We've got a central coordinating hub, which myself and a few other folks are trying to hold this space so that people can find each other and then go back out and do their own thing and share and bring it back in. We've also got a steering group building the organisational structure. We've already got sectoral and geographic hubs forming up. We've got them in Perth, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, and we've got some regional groupings. The North Queensland, there's about a dozen folks who've come together after our really cool conference at Magnetic Island for NINA a couple of, I think it was a month ago. Folks in East Gippsland and now the Sunshine Coast. So they're free to bubble up and come together to focus on things that are of importance to them in their geographic area. We've also got these sectoral hubs around ecological economics, education, healthy cultures, building that inner dimension of work, food systems, and there's many other hubs bubbling up. We're also, NINA is actively engaging with all of the international networks that are building around the world. RIPES has been around for some time. The Wellbeing Economy Alliance is really exciting. It's going to be a massive international space for all of the organisations and networks trying to build the new economy. So I'm just about out of time, probably got a minute to wrap up. I guess I would urge everyone who's not familiar with NINA to have a look at the website. You'll see there we've got a special page for the hubs, and as more hubs get formed by people around Australia, they'll have their own little page. We've also got a Facebook page and a Facebook group. We are building a directory. In the next week or two, people will be getting emails to invite them to be on a directory, so folks can jump onto the website, type in food systems or type in housing, and find which members of NINA are out there, check out what they're up to. We do believe that finding each other, being inspired by each other, others' ideas, and reaching out for support and assistance is a really important function that we kind of don't have at such a broad scale. We have it in Australia in very many sectors, but this will help bring lots of people together. The hubs themselves, we've got a little charter that people can engage with and sort out as they design their own hub structures. And there's a whole bunch of things that people can do together. So into the future, the next 12 months, we're incorporating as a cooperative with a structure to support these semi-autonomous hubs for participatory democracy within the network to ensure that the budgets and the strategic plans and the work of the hubs is all designed and managed by the members. We'll have a membership drive in a couple of months. We've got our next, I guess it's sort of our third, sort of our second annual conference in Melbourne. If you don't know about that, please have a look. It's a fantastic opportunity to get together with other folks. And next year, we've already got all of our regional hubs putting their hands up to run their own workshops, sharing map jams, and a whole bunch of other cool things. So I'm sure you can find our website info and jump on the mailing list. Please think about becoming a member. Connect with the wonderful folks in Perth who have been so amazing in pulling together this event that you're attending, Karun and Adam and many others. And that's about it from me. Just want to really thank you for your time. I hope you all have a fantastic day tomorrow and that some really great ideas come bubbling back out. The task ahead is really quite challenging. The dominant economic system, the dominant political structure is not necessarily working in our favour. But like many others in NINA, I'm deeply of the belief that we can do this. We can amplify and join up everybody who cares and keep working on a much better looking future. So that's pretty much it from me. Thank you again for your time. And I wish I was there, but I'll see you all hopefully in Melbourne and perhaps next year in Perth. Thank you very much.